Now, the main reason I sketch is to convey to someone else who wasn't there on the night or who maybe isn't familiar with visual astronomy what those objects actually look like through the eyepiece. And there's no better way to do that than by sketching it. If you think about it, it's quite logical because a camera is so much more sensitive to those photons than the human eye is. Art quality notepad. This is 170 GSM. A little compass to draw a perfect circle to represent the field stop of the eyepiece that I'm working with. Some really good quality pencils. I'm using Faber-Castell 9000 series. Anything from sort of 2H at the hard end all the way through to maybe 3B or 4B. Blending stump, which is just really tightly rolled paper with a little bit of a tip on it, a nub, is fantastic for making a patch of graphite on the side of your drawing, and then you pick up some graphite on the nub and then just slowly dab that on the page. When you're doing astrophotography, you are depositing photons on your camera sensor. When you're sketching, you are depositing graphite on the paper just as if they're photons. And that's a helpful thing to think about, because if you load up your blending stump and then deplete it and then continue to rub on the paper, you'll damage the paper. And once your paper's damaged, it's basically irretrievable. So it's better to go and get a little bit of few photons, graphite if you will, deposit that on your page, go and get more, same again, rinse and repeat, and just keep loading that blending stump up. Another thing that's handy are these, they're like a sandpaper on a stick basically, and the way that I use this blending stump just to clean it from time to time and get a nice, you can see the graphite actually coming off there, maybe you can't, but yeah, just cleaning the end of that stump and making it nice and fresh. How important it is to match the correct eyepiece to the object that you're looking at. So for example, if I'm looking at M13 and I want a decent amount of time with the object in the eyepiece without having to move my Dobsonian every 20 seconds, then I'll be at like 10 millimeters, 120 times magnification. If I want more detail, I don't mind moving so much, then I might go to 178, get a bit more detail in there. My telescope has just cooled down, so I'm going to get the eyepieces out there, check collimation, and pick a target. Just gone past 1 AM. And I started that sketch at 38 minutes past midnight, and it took me about 40 minutes or so. And so this is with the 10mm Teleview Delos with the Antlia H beta and O3 filter on it, which cuts out any background light pollution. So there is a little bit around here being brought for. Definitely increase the nebulosity and the volume of nebulosity that you can see. Now, it's not a perfect sketch, it's just a field sketch. And but the idea being that if you show that sketch to anyone who's looked at M42 through an eyepiece, they'd recognise that that's M42 without you telling them. And so the main features that come to mind for me are this rectangular gap with no nebulosity in here, the trapezium there, which is maybe a bit tighter packed than that in the 10mm, but that was what I got down. And then over here there's a gap in the nebulosity as well, like a rivulet of no nebulosity or very little nebulosity that juts in and then starts up again. And then you have these two big sweeping wings that come down. So it's basically like an arc with a heavy density of nebulosity around the trapezium and a couple of points jutting in with no nebulosity. And then also just gently, ever so faintly, was picking up nebulosity coming back up and around this way here. Now you have these framing stars. These were the first stars to go in. These ones at the sort of edge, if you will, to give scale. And then these three coming in from this direction here, and then a couple sweeping up into there. Then the trapezium went in, And there's a bit of nebulosity around this star just over here, but that's what I got. So I'll scan that in tomorrow and then invert it, and I don't make any changes to it in Photoshop. It is what it is. So I'll show you a image that I completed of M42 with my deep sky rig versus this, and that will illustrate to you, if you've never done any astro at all, the difference between visual and imaging, which is just huge. Different worlds, different hobbies, but both enjoyable in their own way. And I think for the visual side of things, sketching is an important part of the hobby, I think, because while I was doing this, I wasn't thinking about anything else. I'm out here by myself, no kids, no traffic, no other humans, just me in the night sky, and letting those photons enter my eyes, brain, and filter out through my hands, and then communicate with you what I saw. And I think that's a really pure way of engaging with the night sky. Very basic and human thing to do.